Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Catherine Wells. It's Shipwreck Week here on Let's Get Real. The cinematic masterpiece Titanic came out 2 decades ago, but some viewers can never let go. Today, our two guests will debate the question that has plagued moviegoers since Leonardo DiCaprio first sunk into the watery depths of the Atlantic. Was there room on the door for Jack? Joining us to settle the question is Titanic superfan Stephen Carlton, who has seen Titanic no less than 50 times and runs the online message board myheartwillgoon.com. In the other corner is Sarah Johnson, who is not a fan of Titanic, naming it as the worst movie of all time. Well, folks, let's get right into it. Sarah, should they have tried to have balance on the board more? What were they doing? What was going on?
Absolutely. When it comes down to it, if you get out your stopwatch, your handy-dandy stopwatch, and time the thing, it's about 10 seconds, ultimately, that they try to figure out the balancing of the two bodies on the board. I mean, how could realistically Rose not realize that Jack was going to freeze if he didn't get on the board?
Very good points. Steven?
Okay, let's talk science, Sarah. Okay, we're in the Atlantic Ocean. It's cold. They're in shock. They just got in a huge crash and saw people die, drowning. And you know what? Maybe if they're both on the board, it could have started to sink. This isn't like a nice big lifeboat. It's a door.
You want to talk science?
Okay,
Let's talk adrenaline.
Yeah,
One
he's in
word,
shock.
adrenaline.
He's in oh
Well,
my
temperatures were
2
very
syllables,
cold.
maybe.
We can agree it was freezing in the North Atlantic that night, April 14th, 1912. But one has to wonder, Jack is in love with Rose. Did he realize that he was sacrificing himself by letting her have the door, or was it just a fluke? Stephen, what would you say to that?
I absolutely think that he intended to do this. They had that intimate moment where they're looking at each other like, you know what? I'm about to die. Like, I'm making this choice right here. You're going to be comfortable on that door, and I am going to die and drown and sink to the bottom of the ocean. And I think he's a selfless hero for that, all right? I think he's a good guy. And I think that throughout this movie, Jack has pivoted Rose in the right direction. And by doing this sacrifice, by doing this movement right here, he's just bringing that all together and improving Rose's life.
Thank you, Stephen. Sarah, what would your rebuttal be to Jack and Rose's relationship and whether or not
Thank you for
Jack
asking
knew he was
that.
dying?
I would just have to say, is he in love or is he in lust? What is he? Definitely not love. You don't love someone you just met on a ship 2.5 days ago. I mean, since we are getting to the evening hours, perhaps 3. I mean, Stephen, if you think about it, he's not pointing her in the right direction. He knows absolutely nothing about her except for what she has disclosed on a ship in 48 hours.
Well, that's a question that moviegoers will have to decide for themselves.
He paints her like a French girl.
He does.
Would it make a difference if he painted her like a Spanish one?
I don't know.
And he draws her just to get our facts as accurate as possible.
Sorry.
But when pitching this movie, James Cameron did say this is going to be Romeo and Juliet on the Titanic. So, a beautiful romantic tragedy. Does Jack need to die for the purposes of the narrative arc? Sarah, what do you think?
All right, if you want to go back to science, we'll get something straight. We all need to die. But you don't need
We're
to
all
die.
dying
You
right
don't
now.
need to die the way that Jack did for Rose. They could have easily both fit on that piece of wood.
No.
When it comes down to it, yes, they could have.
No.
Have you looked at the piece of wood?
Have you looked at the piece of
I
wood?
have looked at the
The
piece
of wood may be arbitrary compared to the overall Best Picture winning
Right,
film
exactly.
that we see. So what do you think that this is your favorite movie?
Right, they had 14.
Are you happy that Jack has to die?
I would argue that it wouldn't be the Titanic without this moment. This is what makes the movie memorable. This
So
is
you
what people
admit
remember.
you like people dying.
Yeah, I love it when people die.
That's
Sarah.
essentially what you're saying.
In this movie, I love it when Jack dies. I love it when he sinks to the bottom of the ocean because he has to sink to the bottom of the ocean to bring the plot full circle.
So you want people to think that you're a sociopath,
Yeah.
is what you're telling me.
Okay. Well,
Where's
we
Leo's
can
Oscar?
talk about how many times he's seen Titanic, but it's people love it. Another point of contention is how Rose changes over the course of the movie. Like, we see old Rose having lived a long life. She drops the heart of the ocean into the sea. Now, Sarah, were you happy with where Rose ended up because of the events of the Titanic? And
You know, I think when she dropped the heart of the ocean into the ocean, she also dropped her straightforward thinking, her brain cap, her good stuff. Where was her thought? What was her thought process of that?
well, what do you think about Rose's character?
I think she's doing this for emotional purposes. It's baggage. I mean, she went through this dramatic event with Jack, and I think that ties this this piece brings her back to that time, and it's something she wants to forget. She's moved on from it.
She's moved on from it, but she's an 80-year-old woman still talking about it in depth.
She's moved on in the sense that she accepts what happened, and she's lived this life past that moment, and she understands what that moment did to her emotionally.
Should old Rose have given the heart of the ocean to Brock, who's been searching for it on the deck of the shipwreck?
Yeah, Rose seems a little conniving, if you ask me, which is maybe why Jack did that.
It's not Brock.
He didn't want to be with her. Is it? Whose is it really? It's the ocean's now.
Well,
Because Rose had to be silly like that.
I think it was a
This is
smart
true.
choice.
Now, finally, what about the scene at the end when Rose dies? Or does she die? What do you guys think happened? What do you think, Steven?
She had to die. I think.
Because you love death.
I love death.
Again,
I
we
love
go
death.
back to it.
It's
You
a
just love death.
It's a tragedy. This is like Romeo and Juliet. This is what it's supposed
This
to
is
be.
Romeo
It's
and Juliet.
supposed to be sad. It's not
I
supposed
remember
to be
us
happy.
being in intro to theater together, and I know you know that Romeo and Juliet took place on a balcony and in
And guess what?
Verona.
Sarah? They both
Verona.
died.
Okay.
They died.
They die.
Everybody dies, and you
One
just
could
love
argue
death.
both of the themes of these movies are love conquers all. So, does Titanic achieve that goal? We don't know. This debate will have to be settled outside of TV. But that's all the time we have. Tune in next week to hear about when the Edmund Fitzgerald went down. See you then. Thank you so much for